Hey guys, in today's video, I'm going to preview the men's semifinals at the 2024 Wimbledon Championships. And as I'm reading social media, there are thousands of comments saying that Novak Djokovic has the easiest draw ever. Some people are speculating that draws are rigged at Grand Slams. This is something that I've been seeing. And generally, people are of the belief that Djokovic gets easy draws. First of all, draws are not rigged. This would be a huge scandal. A lot of people don't understand how draws work. I'm going to get into that in today's video. And also, while it might appear that Djokovic gets easy draws, this is actually not the case. So at the Grand Slams, there are 32 players that are seeded. Now, if you take a look at the top 32 rankings on the ATP Tour, you will see that there are only a few guys that are a real challenge to Novak. These guys are Sinner, Alcaraz, Medvedev, possibly someone like Zverev or Hurkacz on grass. Most of these top players who are seeded in Grand Slams are going to be the big-time underdog when they face Novak. I personally thought that Rune in the fourth round was a tough draw, and you saw what happened there. Novak won in 3 easy sets. So the reason why these draws are perceived easy is because people can't picture some of these guys in the top 32 beating Novak. It's only a testament of how good Novak is compared to these other guys. So when you look at a Grand Slam draw, really the only two rounds where you can get lucky are round 1 and round 2. Because in the first round, you could play someone that's ranked 33 in the world, or you could play someone that came through the qualies and is ranked 200 in the world. Here's the thing though. Men's professional tennis is unbelievably competitive. These guys are such good players, even in the qualifying draw. And let's just take the example of Djokovic's second round opponent, Jacob Fernley. He played at Texas Christian University, finished last year ranked 645 in the world, is currently ranked 277 in the world. And in the second round, he got a set off Djokovic and lost the fourth set 7-5. So all these guys can play. It doesn't matter that you draw a qualifier in the first round. You're going to have to play good tennis to win any round of the Grand Slam, and this goes even for Djokovic. So as I said, there are only a few guys that are a real challenge to Novak. So the luck of the draw, if you want to call it that, is where the third seed gets placed. And for you guys that don't know, the number 1 seed goes on top, number 2 seed goes on bottom, and the 3 and 4 seeds are drawn. So the number 3 seed can end up either on top, meeting the number 1 seed in the semifinals, or on the bottom, meeting the number 2 seed in the semifinal. The same goes for the 5 and 6 seed and the 7 and 8 seed. Now, people are saying that Novak is lucky because he got a walkover over De Minaur in the quarterfinals. Now, you could look at this 2 different ways. You could say that Novak got an extra day of rest and he's going to be fitter in his semi against Musetti. But you could also look at it another way and say that it's not the greatest for Novak's rhythm to have an extra day off, and Musetti only having 1 day off is going to have a better rhythm. So tennis works in mysterious ways sometimes. It's not always good to have an extra day of rest. Of course, with Novak's knee, I do think that having an extra day of rest will benefit him. Now, someone on Twitter actually calculated the amount of top 10 wins that the big 3 have collected at Grand Slam tournaments, and guess who is number 1? It's Djokovic. So for all you guys that think that Djokovic gets the easiest draws, he has more top 10 wins in Grand Slams compared to Federer and Nadal. All right, now I'm going to analyze the semifinal matchups. I'm going to tell you who I think is going to advance to the finals. So Musetti has put together an unbelievable grass court season. Who knew that this guy was so good on grass? I will say that I'm a big fan of Musetti. Long live the one-handed backhand. The guy has a lot of variety in his game. He's a phenomenal player to watch, and also someone who plays Novak Djokovic well. Novak Djokovic is 5-1 against Musetti, but Musetti did beat him in Monte Carlo in 2023. In 2024, Djokovic, in the exact same round of 16, beat Musetti in straight sets, and then they faced each other in the 4th round of the French Open, where Musetti won in 5 sets. However, Djokovic did blow out his knee early in that match. So while I do think that Musetti plays Novak well, in this circumstance, the semifinal of a Grand Slam tournament, I see Djokovic advancing in 3 comfortable sets. It's Musetti's first Grand Slam semifinal. There might be some nerves. involved. And Djokovic, on the other hand, is the master of playing his best tennis at late stages in Grand Slams. So for that reason, I don't think that Musetti is going to have much of a chance. Of course, this depends on Novak being 100% healthy. But as we saw in the Popyrin match and the Rune match, the knee seems to be fine. So I'm sticking to my prediction prior to the tournament starting. Djokovic will make the final. Medvedev against Alcaraz, that's a fun matchup. Alcaraz beat Medvedev the last 2 times they played in straight sets. It was at Indian Wells. I did talk about that match, and they also played each other at the World Tour Finals. But prior to that, the last time they faced each other at a Grand Slam, Medvedev took out Alcaraz in the semifinals of the US Open. And I often talk about how good Sinner, Alcaraz, and Djokovic are, and I feel like I don't talk enough about Medvedev. He is one of the greatest tacticians that I've ever seen on a tennis court. And similar to some of the greatest players in history, he has an amazing ability to come through matches that he has no business winning. He has a great 5-set record, and he's just one of those guys that figures out how to win. Now, before the Paul Alcaraz match, I went through a strengths and weakness checklist prior to the match. I recommend that you check that video out. And I'm going to go through the same checklist regarding Alcaraz and Medvedev. So let's start with the forehand and the backhand. I'm going to give the advantage to Alcaraz in these departments. The serve, while Alcaraz has a hard serve and he's improving, you can check out my video that I made during the French Open on the changes that Alcaraz has made to his serve recently. He's serving a lot better. However, I do think that Medvedev is the better server, the more precise server. He might not serve as fast as Alcaraz. So I'm going to give the check mark for Medvedev regarding the serve. When it comes to the return of serve, it's very even. Medvedev is a great returner despite the fact that he stands very far back, but he also has been adjusting his return position based on his opponents a lot more recently. The fact that Medvedev stands so far back is not the greatest thing regarding Alcaraz. Why? Because Alcaraz has one of the greatest drop shots that we ever seen. So it's a dangerous play, and Medvedev might have to stand a little bit closer when he returns serve against Alcaraz. So on the return of serve, I'm going to give the advantage to Alcaraz. When it comes to the net game, Alcaraz is better than most players on tour regarding the transition game. He gets a check mark there. The field, touch, finesse game department, it's also an advantage for Alcaraz. How about offense? Having the ability to put a lot of pressure on the opponent and blow somebody off the court. I'm going to give a check mark to Alcaraz there, despite the fact that Medvedev has a strong serve. Alcaraz is an incredibly powerful player that overpowers most opponents. How about defense? Alcaraz is the faster guy, but I'm going to give both guys the check mark in this department. I think Medvedev, despite his height, plays unbelievable defense and is able to retrieve a lot of balls back in play. But not only that, he can also create power from defensive positions. Of course, not as spectacular as Alcaraz, but Medvedev is a very good defensive player, so both guys get a check mark in this department. How about consistency? Well, here I'm going to actually give Medvedev the advantage. While Carlos Alcaraz is one of the most powerful players that we've ever seen, he has at times tendencies to start missing some shots and start spraying some balls. And Medvedev is one of the most consistent players that we've ever seen. I would compare him to the most consistent player of all time, who is Djokovic. Medvedev can keep that ball in play forever. His focus, his concentration is on point. So consistency goes for Medvedev. And last but not least, movement, something that's super important on grass. Here I'm going to give the advantage to Alcaraz. And this does not mean that Medvedev doesn't move well. As I already said, he's a phenomenal defensive player despite his height, moves extremely well. However, Alcaraz is one of the greatest movers that we've ever seen on the ATP Tour, and is one of the reasons why Alcaraz will have a chance to win a lot of Wimbledon titles. And in the video that I referred to, where I analyzed the Paul versus Alcaraz head-to-head, which at that time was 2-2, now is 3-2 for Alcaraz, despite the fact that Alcaraz is far ahead in most of the departments regarding strengths and weaknesses, Paul still manages to beat Alcaraz or play him very close. And the reason for that is that there are a lot of other factors that can make a big difference regarding matchups that are independent of strengths and weaknesses. It could be the player's confidence, it could be the surface that the match is being held on, it could be the weather, it could be the history of these players dating all the way back to juniors. A lot of these intangible factors are an important consideration when it comes to certain matchups. A factor that's often not discussed is day form. So tennis players don't play well every single day. Sometimes you wake up and you're doing everything right, but you're just not playing your best tennis. It's hard to figure out why. The greatest players have a way of turning a bad day into a good day, but that's one of the many reasons that makes tennis so unpredictable. We don't know whether Medvedev can pull off the upset because Alcaraz is the favorite on grass, no doubt about it. Grass is not Medvedev's favorite surface. He is feeling more and more comfortable. He played well against Sinner, who wasn't feeling well in that match. My gut feeling is there are simply not enough intangibles there for Medvedev to make it through that match. And I'm predicting, just like last year, that Alcaraz will comfortably beat Medvedev and face Djokovic in the final. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I'll see you guys in the next video.